All right, Kirk, the Mavericks, and this always gets me. I have Shams on notifications on Twitter, so whenever Shams tweets out, I get a notification right on my phone, and you just only see the first, sentence and a half, and it's like, the Dallas Mavericks signed, and I was like, oh! And then it was like McKinley Wright the fourth and Mouhamadou Gueye, or Mo Gueye, as everybody calls him. And I'm interested in these two guys. They're coming in as training camp guys, so they're not signed to a regular deal just yet. The Mavericks only have one roster spot left, so that's why they can sign both of these guys. But before I even dive into who they are, do you think these guys, Cap, are they actually fighting for a roster spot in training camp?
I'd say yeah. I'd say that's fact because Frank Ntilikina came into camp last year under a camp deal and ended up signing with the team. 5 years of NBA experience under his belt. Okay, yeah. But I never want to write anybody off because I have a tendency to do that. So at the moment, I just want to say I see no reason for why not. I mean, it seems extremely unlikely. Usually these camp deals are a combination of favor or a pathway to maybe get them on the developmental or the G League team. Yeah. So that seems the most realistic outcome. But you know what? Why not? Why not? Let's be hopeful. There's nothing to talk about.
And they still have a two-way spot open as well. So this is
okay. That's right, because Moses Wright signed in China.
Wright is gone, and Tyler Dorsey is the other guy in the two-way spot. So they still have a two-way spot open. So I think they could be fighting for one of those. I don't see them fighting for a roster spot. And I love Isaac and I always, every time one of these things happen, and somebody gets signed and they're like, and they're, Shams writes in the tweet, like they're fighting for a roster spot. Like, oh, the Mavericks probably just did an agent a solid at a certain point and said, hey, let's bring in these two guys. Maybe not because they're bringing in those two guys, but to tell Shams that they are fighting for a roster spot, like that does an agent a solid a little bit.
Yep.
But with these two guys, I am interested in them. McKinley Wright the fourth is about almost 24 years old. So he's a little bit older. He played 4 years at Colorado. He was a two-way with Minnesota Timberwolves last year. He played just 5 games with the Timberwolves. He played 9 games with their G League team. So he kind of just hung out with the Timberwolves for a long time. He's a pretty solid playmaker. He's undersized though. He's just 6 foot. Can't really shoot that well, but he plays with really good energy. He was all defense at Colorado his last year. And so he's got some stuff. When Isaac and I were texting, he said this is the guy he was more interested in because he's got NBA experience and that defense, like a 6 foot guard that can defend really, really well.
Doesn't he have a plus wingspan?
That is a good question.
I want to say somebody told me he has like a 6'6" wingspan, and I believe from a player archetype thing, I want to say this front office tends to which makes me thrilled, like certain elements of athleticism and plus wingspan, where his wingspan is 6 inches longer than his height.
The rectangle.
It's the sort of thing that it's like where Dennis Smith Jr. he was 6 foot tall with a 6 foot wingspan. Like these inches, they matter, and so it's that. That's a fascinating. He's right. He's probably too small, realistically, but I don't know. You never know what they might see.
My thing is, if you're too small and the shot isn't necessarily there, like he was not a great shooter at Colorado, and then in the G League he shot a little bit better. But in Summer League, I asked Brendan Clean because he played with the Suns Summer League team this past year. I asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, he just can't really shoot that well, but he's an interesting guy. Plays with really good energy, so." I'm interested to see how he works out. I could see him getting a two-way spot, but I could also very well see him with the Texas Legends. The other guy, Mouhamadou Gueye, or Mo Gueye, as everybody calls him, played at Stony Brook for 2 years. He transferred to Pitt last year, and then I texted Nick Faribaugh, who's our Locked On Pitt guy. We have a Locked On Pitt podcast 5 days a week. Go check that out if you're interested in Pitt. Gave me all this, so sit tight as I go through basically a full scouting report on Mo Gueye.
Outstanding.
He's a really nice stretch 4. He's about 6'10". He can create for himself off the dribble, though. He's more of a catch-and-shoot guy on kickouts at this point in his game, but he's also an excellent cutter. He's a super high IQ guy who understands spacing and how to run with it. And on defense, he's a magnet. He was Defensive Player of the Year at Stony Brook before he transferred over to Pitt. He's one of Pitt's best shot blockers ever, and he would erase parts of the court at times because he was there. He averaged over 2 blocks a game at Pitt, which is big in college. Lots of times he just erased stuff at the rim. He runs really well for his size because he's lanky. That frame means that he has to put on some more muscle. He won't post up anyone at the next level. He's going to get bullied under the basket. But he's a magnetic player on defense who on the other end can pop with the three with solid consistency. He's not going to bang down low in a power game, but he can be the backline defender on ball screens that eliminates a lot. Nick Faribault, great stuff on Mo Gueye. And I'm interested in him, but after reading all that, I thought, this is Moses Wright again. This is the same archetype that Moses Wright was. Good shot blocker, theoretically can step out and hit a three. I think Mo Gueye is a little bit farther developed in his three-point shot than Moses Wright is, but the Mavs seem to have a type. They seem to have a type of player, Kirk, that they want to develop into a player they see playing on their roster in the future.
And I don't know. It's like what I mentioned with measurables a bit earlier, that I don't necessarily think the Mavericks care about height outside of the lineup being big. That's sort of what we're seeing right now. If you're looking at various guesses as to what the Mavericks lineup could be, there's not really anybody under 6'5" in the lineup. And, you do got like McGee's obviously a huge person. He is he's taller than you think once you see him in person. Like you read 7 foot, it's just kind of shocking once you see the man that tall in person. But, the guys that are like 6'8" and super long arms are just, why not is kind of the thought. What can he do? The Mavericks had some interesting luck with another Stony Brook player, Jameel Warney. Remember him? 3 or 4 years ago. I was like, what
Summer League legend.
Right. So it's just, he obviously didn't make final roster. He didn't have, much of a NBA career, but it's just, I like these sort of shots in the dark, so long as we can all collectively agree to not do the thing where we're demanding that a player who isn't getting playing time get playing time. It's my favorite thing Twitter does, where it's just like, where's Moses Wright? Guys,
you can ask for that every single year and it will always happen. Every single every fan base does this.
It's like, guys, we're fighting for the 4 seed. Moses Wright is not going to play. Okay.
Moses Brown is not going to make the biggest. He's not going to change everything about the Mavs starting lineup.
I love that sort of stuff. It's just like, are we that bored? We're winning 3 out of every 4 games.
Yeah. But the 4th game,
that's true.
Could have had Moses Brown there. Could have had Moses Wright. But Mo Gueye is the one I'm more interested in because I think his type of archetype, matches in the NBA. You mentioned Mavs don't care about height. One of the things that people don't really know a lot unless you go see these guys in person is that Dwight Howard was like 6'9". Like Dwight Howard is not 7 foot, 7'2". Like he's not Rudy Gobert's height or anything like that, but he was a great center for a while. And look at some of the centers that just played in the NBA Finals. Kevon Looney's not 7'2". Robert Williams is like 6'9", 6'10" as well. So as long as you have decent size and you have the wingspan, which Mo Gueye has a plus wingspan, it's like it's 7'2" or 7'3" or something like that. And then also he can hit a 3-point shot. He shot like 36% from 3 on like over 3 a game that he
That's
took
pretty good
at Pitt. And his shot looks pretty good from just the highlights that I watched today. But from everything that Nick told me from Locked On Pitt, he has that in his game. He's going to be a catch and shoot guy. He can like close out, or he can attack off of a closeout, get to the rim. He had some really, really nice dunks in his highlight package that I saw from Pitt. But I think and then the defense, the shot blocking to me is just what really stands out. If he can be a shot block defender like that, can also hit the 3 on the other side, then that's something interesting that you work on in the Texas Legends. I could see him getting the other 2-way spot, they already have Tyler Dorsey as the 1 2-way spot. Maybe he's the other 2-way guy. And then they develop him for a couple years and see if they can turn him into a Robert Williams, a Kevon Looney, a guy like that.
Mm-hmm. Why not? I love these shots in the dark where, I'm not the biggest fan of the Tyler Dorsey move for 2-way spot because he's 25, 26. Anybody that still has some developmental years in their cycle, let's just see what they can do given a little bit of opportunity. You never know what can happen in a preseason game. You never know what a coaching staff might latch on to. And, let's say it doesn't work out with the Mavericks and he slides down to the G League, or could be a 2-way guy. Like, there's just all sorts of opportunities. So for right now, I love the thought.
The classic example of the training camp guy that you just didn't expect making it is Salah Mejri, right? Like, he was a guy that nobody really expected to make the team. And they cut, who did they cut? It was the center. They cut him like last minute. It was like Sam Dallenberg is who they cut. It was like old Sam Dallenberg, and they cut him. He had a roster spot, and they cut him and like waived his contract and kept Salah Mejri. So they're like, you never know with stuff like this. Now Salah was a little bit older and he had played overseas for a while, but you're right. You do never know about some of these training camp guys.
Man, I'd forgotten. Like
Isaac brings that one up every year, and it's always a really good example because
Salah Mejri was just like, for me, he's like a forever Mav, where I will associate him with certain things. Like he was so testy. I cannot believe I do not remember this, where he was a training camp guy and then he made the roster.
Oh man. Well, it was like 2015, so like
sure.
anything before 2016 or even 2020 now, I feel like our brains just sort of